So thank you very much for your business. It was a pleasure meeting you all today. A couple of things. One is that this is the unedited version. It's unlisted, so YouTube has a listing service, so you can either click on list or unlist. So I don't want it to be seen by the general public, not least because it would be extremely boring for anyone that wasn't involved with it. But I don't have control over what YouTube do, but I can see if the number of people that see it. So, you know, it should be fine, but I'm not YouTube. So if you can send the data logger, the updates from the data logger, and within the survey, I should show you how to do that. And if you can send that, not this weekend, but the following weekend, so 22nd, 23rd of March. If you don't do it, then please do it as soon as possible. I do everything in order and I wait for the data loggers to come through. So obviously it will delay it if you don't. It's better to send it earlier than later. The other thing is, then the final report will be, so I'm going to send a link with information with this report. That's in draft form, so I may change the wording, but it will be as an email attachment, and then within the details within the YouTube, which will be sent so that anyone can read it and understand it, or listen to it, should I say, and understand it. The details will contain links through to recommendations, but it's primarily in the video. So have a look now. I'm sorry if it rambles.
Then you can put that other light on.
Okay.
Um,
How long have you guys been here?
yeah, so we've been here coming up for 4 years.
And
Just
was
before we moved in, there was some signs of damp in sort of this corner around the door, but we got everything, we replastered this room and the lounge. So this is new plaster as of 4 years ago.
And the previous plaster wasn't damp at the base?
There were problems around here, weren't there?
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it was quite old plaster then.
Okay.
So it was kind of needed doing anyway. We saw this, it's appeared over the last 6 months to a year.
About a year ago.
About a year.
Yeah.
And sorry, just to repeat, you probably said already, but when did you replaster it?
4 years ago.
So it's 3 years of no problems, and then suddenly it appeared.
Yeah, I think it had started appearing a bit earlier.
I think it was very gradual.
Yeah.
One problem that I suspect is we had this boarded over. It was an open fire, so it was an open chimney, and the builders didn't put a vent in.
I didn't really notice, but are you terraced here?
Yes.
So that's a party wall.
Yes.
Be interesting. Do you know if the neighbours are in?
Probably, yeah. If their car's there, it'll be
One
in.
of them is.
Yeah.
Be interesting to see the other side of the wall.
Yeah.
Later
I can
on.
give them a message. That's
generally
fine.
alright, yeah.
We did put a vent in just under here, just a
Okay.
basic one, just because we thought, well, it must need some ventilation in an open chimney. And we think since we put that in, it's been...
I think it's improved because there was a little bit damp down here. And that was starting to show the damp, but the paint didn't peel up to sort of that level. You can sort of see a little mark of it. But since the vent went in, it seems to have started to clear out in the last 5 months.
So that's...
That's just a mark.
I think that's a mark at the top of the chair. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it feels smooth. But,
Yeah.
so it's basically plastered floor to ceiling, replastered, skimmed, just a skim coat, or?
Oh, it was skimmed, wasn't it? Or
Or was it back to brick?
They didn't go back to
No,
brick.
not back to brick, no.
No,
Okay.
it was just skimmed.
Okay.
So yeah, and paint's peeling and it's a bit kind of, it's salts.
Saying in behind here you had, there's mould there. Okay.
Yeah. When we first moved in, that's where we noticed some damp problems.
Right in the corner there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the
That was
kitchen.
nice.
I'll be on.
See you later. So So we haven't done anything to this since we moved in, but really it needs a new kitchen and it probably needs replastering. The worst spot is here.
Okay, again you've got mould there, and these are calcium sulfate salts that you have here. These, the old name for calcium sulfate is gypsum, and it's the main constituent in plaster ingredient, and they act like table salt. When they dissolve, they will concentrate, and then they will crystallize, and they crystallize under the paint, under the surface, and they blister. They're actually benign. They're not going to do anything of any concern.
Yeah.
We'll have to deal with the root cause of it, but the blistering itself isn't something to be concerned about.
Okay.
You can just sandpaper it down. You may have to finish it. Sometimes you can get away. You can get away with a number of things. One, you can put in some insulation, which like insulated lining paper, which is quite good.
Right.
Or you can sometimes you can fill it, but it will probably be fairly rough. And given that you obviously have a good plasterer, you might as well just get your plaster about. And there's the bathroom here, then, is it?
No issues in the bathroom. We repainted that not too long ago.
You got an extractor fan that doesn't come on.
It does if you leave the light on for a moment. It should do.
Oh, it's unusual. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best.
And then it turns off. Okay.
Yeah. I think one issue, there's no heating in this room.
And there's no kitchen extractor fan either. It doesn't duct out anyway.
I don't know where it goes.
Well, it just recycles.
Just recycles, yeah.
You can see through there, the gap there. Just shows me that it's not going anywhere.
So it's just.
Whereabouts are your data loggers?
So I've got 3. There's one there.
Yeah.
There's one. Just up here.
Yep.
And then one upstairs, which is upstairs is probably the
main
main
so another
issue.
problem. Oh, okay. Let's go and have a look at that. I always like to see all. Oh, which way are we going? This way around.
Up here.
Yeah. I'll take shoes
You
off.
don't expect upstairs. If you wouldn't mind on the carpet.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Number one.
So.
Number one, number 2.
It's number 1, yeah.
Exciting. Your life will change.
Yes, so everyone tells me.
Oh, right, okay.
So I pulled this out.
Okay.
Actually, I'm going to grab my phone because I've got a video of when it was worse. But the history of this is when we first moved in, we noticed it was more in that top corner, I think, what looked like an oldish stain, and we were reassured by the vendors that they'd had a problem with the roof or the gutter, and it was fixed. And we redecorated, and it was fine for maybe 2 years, but then gradually we started seeing this patching, and it's been particularly bad. It's worse when it rains.
You got paint, haven't you, on the outside?
Yes.
I'll have a look. Okay, so there's the roof. I can actually probably get out there.
We have had people up on there because we had some repairs done to the roof. That's where nails are coming through because they hammered them down.
Nice.
Which we need to get sorted. But yeah, because they said, the roofers, that the cement was crumbling at the edges. So they put in new lining and sort of made that bit of the roof, they said, more watertight. But I haven't seen an improvement since then.
So I can pretty much guess what the problem is, but it'd be good to look outside. You got painted. Is it render or painted brick?
It's render and paint over it. I think.
Okay, I'll have a good look at it, and probably from here and from the outside. But I'll start with the outside.
Yes, that would be really good because I'll show you a video downstairs of how, but it does sort of patch all around here as well.
Okay.
And there's a couple of little patches down.
Okay. I mean, it almost certainly is a combination of penetrating or partially penetrating damp and internal vapor. And the data loggers will help us a lot.
Yeah.
So let's collect the data loggers. What I do is I calibrate them. I put them into a calibration unit with another data logger I've already pre-calibrated, and then just compare and get the numbers accurate. So I'll pick this one up. Yeah, so this is what it looks like. So that is condensation you're seeing there, but what you get with I can see very light brown stains, which tells me that water is passing through building material, and when water passes through brick, it picks up the pigmentation in the brick.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So that for instance, I can't remember, around there's very light staining. So what I think is happening, and I'll go and have a look on the outside, is water's finding its way into cracks. And then what happens is some of the water, a small amount of the water will get the whole way through, but most of it is just dampening the outside brick. And a damp brick is a poor insulator, causing localized heat loss and causing the condensation, which is why it's cold. Well, that room is cold, yeah.
It is a cold room, even though the radiator I can check and it's on, just as much as these are on.
But essentially there are 4 solutions to it, and you need to find the sort of the key one for you. But to start with, you'll need to deal with the external render and or paint, and I'll have a good look at that.
Yeah.
Secondly, you want to reduce the internal vapor by increasing the the extractor fan and or dehumidification. And your kitchen extractor fan isn't going out, and your bathroom extractor fan hasn't got an overrun, and I'm guessing it doesn't work very well. It doesn't look great.
No, that was here when we moved in, so it could be very old.
Sometimes you can just keep them going for a bit, and you can manually keep the light on for at least half an hour.
Yeah.
And actually, I would say possibly even longer. I mean, I have at home what's called a continuous flow extractor fan, which is constantly drawing air out, and it runs at about 5 litres a second. 15 is what you want for a bathroom, but if you for background. So if it doesn't work very well and the noise doesn't bother you, I just keep it running, because not least because any vapor from the kitchen at least will start to go in that direction more than this way. I'm guessing you keep this door open just because it's more sociable to do that.
It's a mix. We often try and close it actually just because of the warmth, because there's no heat in there. So we try and keep the heat in here.
Okay.
And we try keeping windows open and everything, but obviously winter.
Well, as we're getting toward, I mean, it's been cold recently, very cold, but we are moving towards warmer times, and the days are longer, which means that the cold period is shorter. But so the other one's insulation, and it may be worth thinking about that back bedroom if it's cold, and is that the one you've got? Is that going to be like the spare room at the office, or for your young? Yeah,
ideally we would maybe have that for the baby initially, but not.
Well, then insulation may be something to consider. There's some relatively inexpensive solutions, and there's some more expensive ones. So I mean, I've got some sample insulation. So this is the most expensive type. And it's called...
And this is internal.
This is internal, yeah. You can get external insulation. I mean, it may be worth thinking about external insulation, but it starts getting quite expensive.
Yeah.
But this is relatively expensive internal insulation, and it's got a sort of fleece-like material. It's called Space Therm.
Okay.
And it's got a material that acts like plasterboard, so you can plaster up against it. But there's another one that I would probably recommend for you, and that's called thermal insulated lining paper, and it's got this sort of fleece-like material, but on top of lining paper, like old-fashioned lining paper, like wallpaper would be. And it just gives you a little bit of extra heat. It will probably give you another couple of degrees. It's not going to be, it's not amazing, but it's all going in the right direction. But you also
No.
need to deal with the outside. So what you don't want to do is continue to have water going through the wall
Yeah.
and then spoil your.
That's what I was
internal
worried about, because I
decoration.
thought, well, I'd thought about insulating and then redecorating, but then if it's coming through from somewhere,
Yeah.
it's just going to
Keep
mask the
going,
problem and get worse.
There are some other ones. So Celotex, it's called
Will
PIR.
you write all this down in
Yeah, but you've got to.
Oh, and it's on there, of course. All good.
The reason for doing this is I don't have to write
It's
everything
useful,
down.
because I was just thinking, I should have a notepad.
No, so I put it all up there, and even what we're just
Yeah.
saying now at the moment. I edit it and I voice it over when I put it up for
Right.
public, but just for.
Yeah.
So I'll go and have a look on the outside now
Mm-hmm.
and see what I can see. The other thing is I wouldn't mind so knocking on the neighbour next door and testing your water out and just
Yeah.
seeing whether you presumably got a stopcock outside. I'll have a look.
I don't
You
think
will
it's
do
out-
street side. It should do. Do you get?
Oh, we had a problem when we first moved in and we couldn't find the stopcock.
Well, let's have a look.
Yeah.
Let's knock on your neighbour's door first, and then. Well, I mean, I can
Let me
do
just
that.
text and see if they're in
Okay.
and check it's okay.
What I'm concerned about is that you might have a leak, possibly from the mains water, or I don't suppose. Jim, did you have a local authority search when you were given the?
Yes.
Did it show where the mains and wastewater and
I can
all those
find
things?
it. I think it
Do you
is.
want to look it up
Yes.
because otherwise you may have some. So
Local authority search for the main.
you'll see if you see a number of my videos, you'll see quite a few properties I go to where they have this sort of internal damp, and it's typically because of water in the subfloor void, and the subfloor void is the zone underneath the suspended. You have a suspended timber floor, so you have a wooden joist
Yeah.
that's supporting floorboards, and under that you've got a void which is supposed to have airflow and damp-proof cores. But if the airflow is restricted, which yours is because you've got decking to the rear,
Yes.
and it's not a huge amount of airflow anyway. And if you get water in there for any reason, then vapour can condense above the damp-proof cores and cause rising damp-like symptoms. And it's typically worse when you've had damp-proofing treatment in the past, which you may or may. I mean, I don't know if the property has been, but it may well have been because a lot of properties are in the UK as a whole. But that's so. So this sort of damp may show itself. It often shows itself on chimney breasts as well, because of the structure of the brickwork under chimneys. You've got a lot more brick that is exposed to the vapour because you've got the brick and the hearth, and there's, as opposed to just a wall which is long and thin, you've got a lot more surface area to absorb the moisture, and so that's why you often see it on chimney breasts. But anyway, I'm going to measure the subfloor relative humidity, and what you really should be doing is you should. The only way of finding out whether you've got a leak on the mains is by turning the mains off. But because you don't have a stopcock outside the property, you can't find out whether you've got a leak. Well, there are other ways, but they're even worse. They're even more complex.
Okay.
But really, I mean, I just heard the news about Thames Water possibly going into liquidation, so it's not ideal time, but you should ask Thames Water to put in a roadside stopcock, and they'll put in a water meter as well.
Yeah.
But with modern water meters, there's a very sensitive little dial in the middle that shows you whether you've got a leak or not.
Oh, because you'd see water.
Moving.
Yeah.
Because if you're not using anything, but I can't do that without having the ability to stop the water on that side of the property. Stopping it in the bathroom isn't going to change anything. So I'll just measure the subfloor humidity, and then I'll go next door because this takes like half an hour or so. Oh, so if I take this, oh, there we go. That's ideal. So I just basically, I'm just going to drop this meter into the subfloor void, and you can see that the vapor or humidity is 46 and temperature 18. We'll just leave that for half an hour. It hits 70.
Can we go find the local authority search?
So relative humidity is a measure of air's capacity to hold moisture. The warmer it is, the more you can hold. Vice versa, the colder it is, the less you can hold.
Right, okay.
So it was a little bit high where I had it, and I pushed it further in where it's a bit colder.
Yeah.
Probably because you're near a radiator running in the underfloor. So I
Yeah.
pushed it down, and it's suddenly gone up to 87 now. But so it's telling me you've got so. I'm not in the business of concerning people, but you have a risk of rot in the subfloor void, so it is something that needs to be dealt with sooner than later.
Right.
Now that you know about it, if you had dry rot, you would normally smell it. It's got a distinctive mushroomy smell, and you see red spores, at least when it's at the fruiting stage, which is fruiting is like, Ross is like mushrooms basically.
Right.
Fungi. They have fruit like plants have a fruiting stage, flowering stage. The fruiting body is the same thing, so it's not going to happen immediately, but you do have a risk anyway. So the one, you need to solve the root cause of the damp, which is almost certainly the mains water leak, and given that you don't have a stopcock on the outside, you probably have lead pipes. Do you know?
I was just looking at the survey. I think it said yes.
Yeah.
That are prone to.
So we're hitting 89% now.
So in terms of fixing a leak in the subfloor, does that mean ripping all the floors up?
It depends where the leak is.
Presumably finding the leak is the biggest issue.
It would be difficult to do it without. So what you can do, you still need to have access to the subfloor, but I'm guessing your subfloor is probably maybe not a meter, but it's possibly crawlable. You would almost certainly have to relay. Sorry, if you've got a lead pipe, you might as well put in a new pipe while you're about it, and then you can just relay another pipe without having to identify where the leak is necessarily.
Yeah, I see. But it would still be taking all the
I mean,
floors
it's so. It could be that the leak is outside the house. I'm saying it, not actually particularly believing it, but it might be a way of getting Thames Water to come and do it. And if the leak, basically, the rule is if the leak's on their side of the boundary, then it's their
Yeah.
responsibility. If it's on your side of the boundary, it's your responsibility.
That's it.
In the old days, you used to be able to get Thames Water to do it, even if it's marginally on your side of the boundary. They're probably less.
I imagine
keen
they've
on
got
doing
other
that.
things to worry about.
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah, it's not great timing as well. But anyway, it needs to be dealt with, basically.
Okay.
And it's probably pre-existing. Probably goes back to your previous owners and not picked up by your surveyor.
Yeah, I know they said they weren't able to look at the subfloor or anything.
But they could have done this.
Yes. You'd
It'll
thought
only
so.
take a couple of minutes to do it.
Yeah.
But surveyors doing. In the survey, it says that they saw no evidence of a damp-proof course, but highly unlikely that it wasn't there. But a damp-proof course is a backstop in case you have a leak that goes unnoticed. But the downside of the damp-proof course is that the water can condense above the damp-proof course, and then it creates a barrier which actually increases the amount of water that will be absorbed upwards because water rises, but it goes in every direction, and gravity pulls it down. So the rise of water is very limited if you don't have a barrier. When you put a barrier in, like a damp-proof course, it can't go down, so it goes up. So you get much more, you get much worse rising damp-like symptoms when you've got a damp-proof course than when you haven't.
As you've just said that, neighbours just messaged. They're not in, but they said we've also had issues around our back door and wall just before the fireplace, so that would be there,
Yeah.
and even had it damp-proofed. We had to get drainage put in and found that the vent was sealed.
The subfloor vent, presumably.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. They're not going to be in though.
No, they go to the zoo. I should have checked. I didn't think we'd need access. I thought it was mostly there.
Well, it's party wall. Do you mind telling me that to me? It'd be really useful. So it's party wall. Well, I think you guys should do it together because whatever's affecting your property in the subfloor sounds like it's affecting theirs, and they could be the source of the water. So the leak could be on their side. So I haven't been able to test whether you've got a leak or not. All I can say is that you've got high subfloor vapour levels. They could have much higher subfloor vapour levels and just be passing the vapour through to your side. And a very simple way of determining, well, the trouble is if they've had damp proofing treatment, it hides the damp issue, it doesn't deal with it. So, but I use this type of damp meter, which is, there are two sort of standard ones, two standard types, should I say. One's professional level that costs about £500. So one of these costs about £500 and I wouldn't bother getting it. This one that I actually prefer anyway costs £23, does exactly the same thing. It uses radio waves like the other one does. So there's two functions. One is 2-in-1 moisture meter. It's got radio waves and its surface, and the radio waves are the ones that I prefer. So you have to put it on masonry. I encourage you to get it. Doctor meter, and it will tell you how high the damp is and then how high it's risen. What I would encourage you to do is use it for the neighbour side. It's on Amazon, you can get it within a couple of days if you've got Prime.
Okay.
And then just go in your neighbour's side and find out. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the source isn't on their side rather than your side. But obviously, if you've got the drain report, it's also useful to know where the drainage. So one of the properties I went to last month had the sewer system going through for the 2 or 3 houses, and it was broken, and they're getting Thames Water to fix it. So
Right. Okay.
because it's a responsibility of Thames Water if more than one household's waste goes through a pipe, even if it runs through your land. Time solicitors offer a quick search, which doesn't include things like local authority searches, and otherwise it should do. I mean, it's only rare. It's normally when you're trying to exchange in extra fast.
No, definitely, because I've got emails saying yes, we authorise it.
You authorise the payment. I mean, don't feel you have to get it now. Have a search for it and look for it. I mean, you can always get in touch with them if you can't find the email yourselves.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, so most solicitors have like a Dropbox type thing where you have all the files in one place. You can look it up, go back.
Yeah, I'd have to just go back to emails, and I'm sure I'll be able to find it. So things I need to send.
So this is, in my opinion, the more problematic issue. But let's now start to focus on the other issues.
Yeah.
And if I get a ladder and have a look outside at the wall. So effectively the decking is stopping the subfloor ventilation from the rear, so you're not getting through flow, and it's all the way along. Oh, you've had that roofing treatment, those dots there, bang bang, like bullet holes. So if you've had it there, you probably had it all the way around the front. Okay, the drains look okay, you can see there's water in the trap, that's good. This one isn't really directed straight in, and there's a crack under there, so not ideal, but that's not going to be the root cause. Oh yeah, so you've got an expansion gap there. That's an extension. You've got, there's your cracks. So those are render cracks and further up, and basically they need filling. You've also got that vent there. So they need filling with an acrylic-based caulk and then painting over with impermeable paint like Zinza or Dulux do one. And likewise, I would paint over that, just because you may have some permeability. Basically, any crack, a vertical crack doesn't allow much water in, but it will allow some. It sucks in like a capillary will suck in water, and what most of it does is just gets in behind and causes localized cooling, but occasionally if it's a substantial crack or whatever reason, water gets all the way through, and that's what's probably happening with that one there. Okay, I'll have a look now with the thermal imaging camera. This is telling me that there's another problem. This is a symptom.
Yeah.
Dampness at the base of the wall is a symptom of another problem, and the problem being the leak, be it on your neighbour's side or your side. So you have had damp proofing treatment. If you look at the base of the wall, you have I put it on video so you don't need to look at it, but you've got little dots. So evenly spaced dots, and that's a sign that somebody's drilled into the wall, injected chemicals, and then what they'll do is they'll replace the well, you've had this replastered, so I won't be able to feel it, but typically what you'll have is a damp proofer's ridge about 1 metre up, and that may be the reason you replastered it. I mean, it doesn't look particularly good, but it's what. So anyway.
Yeah.
So this wall won't be absorbing moisture as much as this wall, because that's been damp proofed, and damp proofing hides the damp, and thank God that the whole property wasn't damp proofed, because you would end up with rot eventually. I mean, it's a more or less a certainty.
Right.
So damp proofing, there are a lot of downsides, but one of them is that you can't see what's going on because you don't get the telltale signs because they're being hidden.
Yeah,
and you're not dealing with the root cause.
In terms of rot, I'm sure you can't really answer this, but timescales, if it's already that humid?
That's a good question. So dry rot will happen very rapidly, probably within a year. if you've got it. And spores are omnipresent, but it's very random as to where the dry rot is. It's normally because there's been an outbreak in the area, but you're never going to know about it particularly. I'll give you a little history behind it. It comes back from, it's not native to this country. It comes from the Himalayas, trees in the Himalayas, and it comes back to shipbuilding during the time of the East India Company. Up in the upper reaches of the Himalayas, they used to build the ships and then bring them down, and then so we have it in this country, and the Dutch, because the Dutch East India Company. And what happened in the old days is when ships were no longer useful as ships, because for whatever reason they used to reuse the timber in houses, so you got the rot from the ships, but now it can affect any
it's just spread.
but anyway, it's very fast growing, and despite its name, it needs water, and it creates a lot of water, and it's really rapid. The second most common rot, well, actually there are probably 2 or 3, but the next probably is called cellar rot. And that is slower growing. It's very common. I've got some at my place, and you often get wood weevil with it, and it's often the wood weevil that's actually more destructive than the wood rot itself. Without being able to see in the cellar, I can't tell you, but I would say that it largely depends on the amount of moisture and the humidity, but it's probably more like a 10-year before it sort of gets really, terrible. That's just a finger in the wind. It's not scientific, but it's just it's a degree. It's like dry rot is 10 times faster growing than wet rot, shall we say? Again, that's not scientific. That's just experience. And then you get other rots. You get white rot, different types of white rot.
And those high humidity readings, there's no other possible explanation apart from a leak. Do we think? It's nearly always a leak.
No, I think
it could just be the lack of vents and everything.
Well, yeah, the lack of ventilation increases the risk.
Yeah.
Again, it would slightly hide the problem rather than dealing with it. I mean, I'll have I did look, and I think you're near to an old riverbed, but you're not actually on an old riverbed.
That never came up in surveys, no.
When I do the report, I'll put on the thing, but the local topography. But I noticed that they're called wood cottages, so it suggests that this was woodland at some stage.
It was. We've actually got old maps
there.
Yeah, it used to be Corbyland's Wood, I think.
Oh, right. Oh, you can probably tell where the river runs. There you go.
It's the one on the right that's slightly more recent.
What, here?
We are... where are we again, Glenn?
I remember that one.
Near a woodland, presumably.
That's Footscray.
Oh, well, don't worry.
Halfway Street, that's us. That's the Hollies. Our
This way, aren't
road,
we?
Corbyland's, there we go, Corbyland Wood.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, but there are no rivers. There's this stream here, but I'll have a look on the, but you don't have groundwater in the area. The groundwater's pumped out, which is the root cause of rising damp, which is the reason for having rising damp treatment or damp rivers treatment.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, it's a leak, but it could be from your neighbour's side. Sounds like they had even worse problems.
Well, if they've had it damp-proofed and had drainage put in, that sounds worse.
Do you know? Oh, you don't know when the message didn't say, did it?
I think it said.
No.
What was it like underneath?
In fact, didn't we ask the builders, Glenn? We weren't living here at the time, but we said, can you let us know if anything looks damp or say you've got automatic, and they said it all looked fine.
I think they would know. I'll just go around with this. This is a third.
Because I remember being reassured because we specifically asked them to look after the survey, and they said it all looked fine.
When was it? 2 or 3 years ago, you said?
That was nearly 4 years ago.
So this is a thermal imaging camera, and it sort of highlights heat loss. And I'll put it all on there so you can have a look at it. So the blue is colder, and you can see that the numbers are continuously changing because it's a relative value.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the blue is relatively colder to the red and the white.
Right.
So don't just always look at the blue, but it's quite useful. Now, when I go upstairs, it will highlight. Oh, sorry, I haven't taken my shoes off.
Oh, don't worry. They look perfectly clean.
So corners are always always get heat loss because you got increased external surface area, but you can see how you're getting little patches of dampness as well.
It follows the
Yeah.
inspiration on the walls.
There was also an air brick that's been blocked up, and that looks a bit damp up there probably. I mean, it's looking at cold, but cold often means damp.
Yeah.
It doesn't always, but the reason why is it's both the heat loss you get from poorly insulated brick or building material, and also if something is damp, then it will be evaporating during the day, and evaporation causes heat loss as well.
And we've got patches down here as well. Mould.
So you get mould where you get a high surface relative humidity, which can be caused by excess vapour, which can be either localised or general.
Right.
So I think you've got a bit of both. I think
Yeah.
it's localised because it's coming through, so it's penetrating all the way through here. But I also saw it downstairs as well. So if you've got mould in one place, you often get mould in other places because the
Right.
spores.
So that would be the general vapour and humidity in the house.
Exactly.
Okay.
While I've got it running, I'll just look at these other rooms, and then you can decide whether there's insulation to be.
Yeah.
You get a lot of heat loss up at the top because the eaves, because you don't have insulation in the eaves.
No.
They're calibrated now. There's a marginal difference, but they keep changing, so I wouldn't worry too much. But do you see the dew point? That's this number down here. That's really important because that tells you how much vapour there is in the air. Dew point is a measure of the amount of vapour in air, as well as being the temperature that condensation takes place at.
Right.
So you can look at the dew point and compare the data in around one data logger compared to another data logger, and say to yourself, oh right, so there's more vapour there than there is over here or over there.
Yeah.
Vapour moves through diffusion, so in an open plan room you'll get very similar dew points, but obviously over the distance of a property you may get a huge difference between the kitchen, which may be generating it, and the bedroom or bathroom. So what I do is I look at the dew point differential, which is the difference between dew points and different data loggers, and that I initially look at it, and then I give my best estimate of what I think is going on, but you'll have a much better idea. You'll be able to say, oh right, look, the dew point's going up every day at 7 o'clock because that's when I cook, and you'll think to yourself, that's the thing that I've got to try and reduce.
And then that does affect the rest of the house, does it? Because I was thinking, well, it can't be as much to do with condensation in that back bedroom because there's nothing that produces vapour.
So vapour moves through diffusion like smoke. So if somebody was smoking in the kitchen, without any ventilation, because you don't have the kitchen ventilator extractor fan doesn't work. It doesn't go out. So if somebody was smoking in this room and you're basically open plan, you would eventually smell the vapour in the back bedroom. Plus, H2O is lighter than O2. H2O water is light, and that's why the clouds are up in the sky. So vapour will rise. It will disperse in all directions, but it will rise compared to, say, CO2, which dry ice you see on the stage that floats down, or carbon monoxide, not that you see it, but H2O water will rise. But it will diffuse everywhere. It goes from high vapor pressure to low. It moves through the vapor pressure. So anyway, so the dew point is important. I'll give you a brief explanation. So you get mould where relative humidity goes above 85% for long periods of time, 6 to 8 hours. And so in a room that's not often occupied, not necessarily well heated, maybe poor airflow, you're more vulnerable to getting mould. And behind here, the vapour is diffusing behind the long curtain, and you see you've got some mould at the base. It's diffusing behind the curtain, but the heat isn't getting through past the curtain. So heat tends to move through air currents, whereas vapour moves through diffusion. So high humidity causes mould, and then obviously once you reach 100%, that's where condensation takes place. So that's the dew point where you get to 100%. In the summertime, when it's really warm, you can hold a lot more vapour in air, such that in the heat of the day, when all the lakes, rivers, seas and so on are evaporating out water, it can be 30 degrees centigrade, but the relative humidity is only like 50 or 60%, because it could still hold much more. And then, but at that night, when it goes below 20, 19, 18, 17 degrees centigrade, it suddenly hits the dew point, and dew is on the ground outside, because dew is condensation, and that's because it's no longer warm enough to hold all that moisture, and it goes from 50% to 100% because the temperature has dropped, not because it's got any more vapour in the air, it's that the air can no longer hold as much vapour. So it's got to 100%. So that's the explanation for why you're getting it upstairs rather than here. It's made, the heat loss makes the situation worse, it increases the risk of condensation, but it's not the root cause. The root cause is the excess vapour, and a well ventilated property, you'll have the same internal vapour as there is outside, because you're constantly blowing the air from the outside with the external vapour inside. But if it's raining, the air outside will have the same dew point as the outside temperature, because rain is condensation, and it's 100% relative humidity, so it's reached the dew point. So the dew point outside can never go above the outside temperature. So you don't need to be in a perfectly ventilated property. All you need to do is keep the dew point down to the outside temperature by increasing the ventilation and or dehumidification. And I always recommend to anyone that they have a 20 litre dehumidifier running. 20 litres is the sweet spot between efficiency and sound and size. They start to get noisy.
What's our one upstairs? Because we've got,
I think that's 25. Possibly.
Recently got a good one, and we run it whenever we're drying clothes and things.
I would, in the short term, while you're trying to sort this out, try and reduce the amount that you dry clothes indoors. It's one of the big changes between modern living and our forefathers. People always used to dry clothes outside, and they used to dash out because probably there was a homemaker, and somebody to dash out when it's raining. That's obviously not as easy now. So people do. I mean, we dry clothes inside, but we always have a dehumidifier next to the clothes.
Yeah.
The other thing is that so you want to basically there are 6 things that you're going to try and do to reduce the risk of mold and condensation. One is sort out the external, but you're always going to have a risk because of that corner. You saw how cold that corner is. It's going to be cold. It's just not going to be quite as cold without the water, but it's still going to be a risk.
And sorting out the outside, because presumably there might be so many other hairline cracks that we probably are best to just get all of it.
Well,
I know it might be a question more for a builder.
well, so a builder's going to try and sell you a product.
Right.
I'm just trying to sell you a solution, which I don't benefit from other than knowing that it's sorted out. If it were me, that's where I start. I would anyway fill the cracks and repaint it. And I put it to film already, but repaint it with an impermeable paint.
Right.
So not a semi-impermeable paint like Weather Shield, but a impermeable one like Zinza do one and Dulux do one, I believe. Impermeable masonry paint. But you want to fill the cracks first, and you fill them with something that an acrylic that can move or mastic. But the one I recommend is an external acrylic caulk that you can fill the gaps in and then paint it. The paint is your first layer of protection. The caulk is your second layer of protection.
Okay.
So. Going back to the vapour, so the condensation. So the 6 things that you need to deal with is one is the vapour in the first place. So the production of vapour, and the extraction of vapour. So you can reduce the amount of vapour produced with cooking by 80% by cooking with tops on pots and pans. So if you're doing pasta, if you don't have the top open all the time, you just have it closed, you can turn the heat down and still boiling, it's still going to cook as quickly, but you reduce
He's always telling me this, I'm very bad.
You reduce your vapour by 80% from cooking.
Okay.
80% of the vapour that's generated by cooking. So that's number one. Drying clothes internally, if you can dry it outside, and if you can't, dry it in ideally a room with the door closed and the dehumidifier running.
Yeah, do
So
that.
and also obviously the bathroom extractor fan. I'll look at that briefly. And then insulation. It's not a solution, but it will help. Airflow and heat, in particular balanced heating between different sections of the property. Obviously, if you've got it, what I was recommending is thermal lining paper. Wool rock rock wool is an example, a brand name. That will just give you an extra couple of degrees, and probably on the ceiling as well as the walls.
Okay.
In the back bedroom specifically.
Yeah. Because you got a lot more external surface area to internal volume compared to other rooms.
Yes.
Because it's long and thin at the back, so you get more. And possibly it's possibly the last run on the radiator, so you're probably getting less heat from the radiator.
Okay, so crank it up a bit as well.
Would it help if we put like a little standalone heater in there as well?
Sure, but that becomes quite expensive. I'd say a dehumidifier is a really good form of heat. It's very efficient for lots of different reasons. One is that all the energy that you put into a dehumidifier comes out as heat, but you get 50% bonus as you're going from vapor phase to liquid phase. You compress the molecules and that releases heat without any extra energy. So it's the opposite of evaporation, causes heat loss. So it's like an air source heat pump. You get 50% bonus. You get 150% of the energy you put in comes out as heat. Also, a drier, or should I say, a wet, humid property feels colder than a dry, humid property. So if you dry the place out, you can reduce your your thermostat and your need for heat and feel just as warm. The other thing is that if you get heat loss, just like damp proofers treatment causes heat loss in walls, so dampness in the walls themselves will cause heat loss. So in the bedroom you're getting greater heat loss because there's dampness in that wall. So all of these factors are reasons for using a dehumidifier. And whenever you go away, you're probably not going to be going away between now and July, but whenever you go away, you should really run a dehumidifier draining into the sink. And I always set it to 70%. You can turn the heat down because you don't need as much heat, and just run the dehumidifier in the background in the kitchen, dripping into the sink with the door open.
Yeah.
I'm gonna now look at your extractor fan in the bathroom. Click the green numbers. Start that one. So that's then synchronizing the data. That's drawing it down. I'll leave it. It's only taking. So I hope the dampness is coming from your neighbour's side. You'll know because it will be worse on their side, although the damp proofing treatment will have hidden it. But you can ask to see pictures of it, maybe.
Yeah.
Or you can even invite them to come and see your side and say, comparatively, was yours worse? Because, so if you press the calculator sign, top right, and then export sign, top right, export CSV, bottom left, and then send it to myself, simon@dampsurveys.com. So this will be mainly condensation, and these are calcium sulfate salts, probably because the bathroom's kept quite cold, I imagine. Do you put the heating on? I can feel the heating on now.
Yeah, it is on. Bathroom, it's only the towel rail that's the source of heat, and it's not great.
So you've got a fly screen there that can slow down the flow, and it's going through the fascia. Fascia looks like you've got some window rot. It just needs to be repainted, really. Give people 3 things to do in the short term. This is not to do with fixing that, but your bathroom extractor fan is running at roughly the speed of a continuous flow extractor fan. So I think it's worth just keeping the lights on.
Right, okay.
And I would do that in the short term, just keep it running.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That's fine.
Even if the door's closed.
Is it best to leave it running with the door closed or open?
So basically you want to have the door closed in the bathroom, but if you've got the window, I would close the window and then close the door, and then you'll be drawing the air from the kitchen through pass through and out of the vent, if that makes sense.
Right, so close the window.
Close the window
bathroom.
and close the door, and then use that as a form of ventilation for the whole kitchen area. So
Okay, even if the door's closed, it will still...
Well, get through in the gaps
Yeah,
underneath.
right.
Yeah, you've got gaps under there. Yeah. So the other thing is reduce the amount of vapour from cooking.
Yeah.
Cook with pots and pans.
Is it good to open the window whilst we cook? Or is
window open, door closed.
Yeah.
But I mean, ideally you'd vent out that. But
yeah.
I say, I mean, a lot of people have fans but just never use them. So if you're keeping an eye on the vapour levels, then you know what you're doing. You've got something to aim for. So that's number 2. In the upstairs bedroom, not a huge amount you can do. Drying clothes. So drying clothes, put it into a room with the door closed.
We already do that actually with the dehumidifier.
Dehumidifier.
Yeah.
Only recently though.
Yeah, so we can keep going with that.
Okay, well, the bonus one is just keep a really close eye on the data loggers, and try and keep the internal vapour levels measured as dew point below the outside temperature. That's called Dew's law.
Right, below the outside temperature.
Okay, I'll just pick up the See, we're now 93% relative humidity. The decking blocks the flow of air to the back, so subfloor ventilation relies on through flow from front to back. When there's air, when there's wind, it will blow underneath. As soon as you put something in its way, such as decking or a shed or whatever it is, or even if you allow the subfloor vents to become blocked up, you stop that through flow. Or even when people put in extensions, even if they put in ventilation pipes underneath the extension, which is a good thing to do, but so there is a way around that using mechanical ventilation, but it means having access to the subfloor void, and it's quite a and the other thing is, I say, it's not a solution to the problem. You should deal with the leak.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. If you get in good ventilation, it's like a damp-proof course. It's there as a backstop in case you can't deal with the issue. But yeah, I mean, my sister had a property with a stream running underneath it. Literally, it's a 15th century property, 1450s, and it was extended in the 17th century over. I mean, it's just a small thing, but they didn't have rising damp there because they had a huge, like, window size subfloor ventilation front to back, so they never had problems because the vapor was just being blown away.
Okay.